Unearth the sinister secrets of nighttime driving. 7 spine-chilling tales revealed. Jess gripped the steering wheel tight, her knuckles turning white under the dim glow of her car's dashboard. As she drove along the cracked pavement of Route 66, a thin veil of fog crept in, wrapping around her like an unwelcome foggy embrace. Nights like this felt eerily silent, save for the soft hum of the engine and the distant rustle of autumn leaves. She wished she could shake off the unsettling stories buzzing in her mind, the gruesome whispers of the townsfolk, tales of terrible things lurking just out of sight. Every late-night drive home from the diner was familiar, comforting even. But tonight felt different. It was colder somehow, and as she navigated the isolated back roads, every shadow seemed to beckon. Just past the infamous abandoned farmhouse, a hulking structure shrouded in mystery, the stories raced back to her, tales of people who disappeared, lost to the night forever. They reverberated in her mind, though she knew better than to dwell on them. Suddenly she glanced in the rearview mirror. A figure, blurred and monstrous, shadowed her in the darkness. Panic slammed into her chest, a knot tightening around her heart. Were they following her? The few headlights behind seemed to twist, a chilling blur amplifying the dread coursing through her veins. She pressed her foot to the accelerator, breath quickening. The only thing worse than the thought of being chased was leaving Lily, her precious daughter, alone in their small home. Then a vibration cut through her spiraling thoughts. Her phone, an unknown number flashing on the screen, buzzing madly against her lap. No, she needed to focus, but the relentless ringing was like a hammer against the glass of her sanity. Finally succumbing, she picked it up as a crackling voice slithered through. Whispers of secrets, conclusions of concealed darkness wrapped around her neighbors, washing over her like ice water. Were they monsters? The very faces she'd laughed with, those she'd trusted, suddenly twisted in the dim light, pulling her into a horrific reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. This jolt of normalcy quickly waned as she shot down the unforgiving road, her heart pounding louder than ever against the terror draping around her. The figure behind her grew clearer, menacing and elongated, its presence seeming to distort reality itself. Shadows danced grotesquely in her headlight beams, mingling with her mounting screams as she sped past the farmhouse. This wasn't just a drive home, it was a descent into chaos and confusion. As Jess rounded a tight curve, darkness enveloped her car. The lights flickered, breath stilled. The figure loomed larger now, a threat closing in as her surroundings twisted. She gripped the wheel, spine rigid, the vision of Lily's sleeping face flashing through her mind, intensifying the urgency to escape. Would she outrun her nightmare? Or would that farmhouse emerge once more, entangling her in a web of betrayal and terror from the very people she once considered family? Jess's heart raced, her mind wrestling with the reality around her. She willed her car to go faster, but the engine's roar felt more like a whimper. The figure behind her loomed, its shape shifting ominously as if alive, threatening, relentless. She caught her breath glancing again in the rearview mirror. The outline flickered, blending into the dark fog, but she could feel its eyes on her, seething with unfathomable hunger. She didn't dare look away. Ahead, the road twisted and turned, a serpent slithering through the void of night, and she clung to it like a lifeline. The memories of Lily curled around her heart like thorny vines, reminding her what she stood to lose. "Not tonight," she muttered, almost in a plea to the universe. A sudden flash lit the dashboard for a brief second, a blinding, crackling burst of light illuminating the shadow for just a moment. Jess gasped as she saw it, pale and gaunt, with elongated fingers that seemed to stretch impossibly into the air. The image burned into her memory, deep and unsettling. What the hell was it? She shook her head, willing the image away, but it lingered, gnawing at her already frayed nerves. The vibrations of her phone pulsed again, demanding her attention. This time she couldn't ignore it. She snatched it up, voice trembling as she spoke. "Who is this?" The crackling whisper returned, but it wasn't words, just a sinister laughter echoing through the silence, cold and mocking. It filled the car, wrapping around her like barbed wire. "Turn back," it hissed. "Turn back before it's too late." Jess flinched, feeling her grip on sanity slip. She fumbled with the phone, abandoning it entirely, but the dread clung harder. The laughter faded, only to be replaced by a haunting melody, echoing through the cabin. Images flooded her mind, images of Lily playing on the lawn, her innocent laughter transformed into screams. Snapshots of the townspeople, faces twisted in grotesque expressions of violence as if they had morphed into something she couldn't recognize anymore. In her frantic driving, she rounded another turn sharply, the tires screeching on the gravel. Ahead, an unnerving figure materialized on the road, standing still and fixed. It was blocking her path, a spectral silhouette against the fog. Jess's instinct screamed at her to swerve, to flip around and head back the way she came. But the thought of the figure chasing her rooted her into place, like prey frozen in horror. As she approached, her headlights caught the distorted features, a face she knew all too well. The baker from town, his smile now a grimace. He was dressed in a tattered coat, one hand extended toward her as if beckoning her to stop. "Help us," he mouthed, though the words came out as a garbled entreaty. Jess's mind raced. What did he mean? Who was us? In that instant of hesitation, the figure behind her surged closer, an overwhelming pressure. Panic clawed at her throat. The shadow seemed to whisper her name, rekindling a sense of dread she couldn't shake off. She slammed her foot down, tires spinning, the vehicle lurching forward. "Get away!" The words escaped as a guttural scream. The car lunged, wrenching to the side, the steering wheel responding shakily. But what was she heading toward? Jess couldn't tell. She was caught in a desperate flight, plunging deeper into a night that threatened to consume her whole. And then, thwack. The impact jolted her, sending her heart racing up into her throat. Had she hit something? Panic rooted her, and the fog wrapped tightly around the car, a suffocating shroud. There was no way to know if she had crossed into salvation or sealed her own doom. Silence encased her like a heavy mantle. Jess took a breath, heart hammering, waiting for the next horror to reveal itself. Had she escaped the figure, or did she let it in? The darkness outside whispered again, and she realized with dread it wasn't over yet. The air inside the car was thick and suffocating. Jess strained to hear any sound through the oppressive silence, each heartbeat echoing like thunder against her ears. The fog outside wrapped around her like a predator, closing in tighter, holding its breath in anticipation. Was it a deer? She wondered, her brain fumbling for some logical explanation. She had seen the figure in her headlights, its twisted features etched in horror, but in her panicked state, perhaps she had miscalculated. She took a shaky breath, trying to steady her racing heart, eyes darting nervously to the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just the swirling mist pressing against the glass like a shrouded phantom. "Look what you've done," she whispered to herself, her hands trembling on the wheel. But she couldn't dwell on that now. With merciless urgency, she forced her foot to ease off the brake, scanning the road ahead for any sign of escape. Images of Lily invaded once more, filling her with a fierce determination. Just as she began to accelerate, a wet slap against the hood of the car froze her muscles. Jess's pulse quickened, and she flinched, heart thundering in her chest. She swiveled in her seat, the headlights casting a narrow beam into the fog. There it was, a shape slumped across the front of her car, twisted at unnatural angles. A chill settled in her bones. It was a man, his face ashen and ghostly, eyes rolled back, mouth frozen in a silent scream. The baker. She hadn't missed him. She had run him over. "No, no, no." The words tumbled from her lips like broken glass. Despair threatened to drag her down, but she couldn't stay. She was already being hunted. She slammed the car into reverse, heart racing, hoping she could just back away, escape the vast darkness crawling towards her. As she jostled back, a force hit her tires, a sudden bump, and she braced for more. But there was nothing, only the cloying fog closing around her again. Behind her, the grotesque figure of the baker began to rise, staggering as if defying death itself. Panicked, Jess threw the car into drive and lurched forward, engine sputtering with a desperate roar. But the road was an endless spiral of terror, and shadows danced like they had wills of their own. The baker's loveless gaze dug into her soul. She had seen his face transformed into that horror, yet here he was, defying all logic. "Help us." His voice, once kind, was now a guttural echo of agony, the chorus of lost souls rising from the depths of something unfathomable. The laughter from earlier returned, rising like a haunting melody, twisting through her mind. It looped like a song of despair, entwining with the memory of Lily, reminding her of the cost of ignorance, of the sin of leaving others behind. She couldn't look behind her lest she lose sight of the tortured shadows ahead. Mirages flickered in the corners of her vision. Faces hovered just out of reach, pulling at her sanity, beckoning her to join. Wailing pierced the air, a cacophony spiraling into madness. What if she turned back? What if she stopped instead of raced ahead? The idea sank deep, planting seeds of doubt. But before she could think, a new figure appeared on her left, sidelong and impossibly thin. An apparition cloaked in darkness, its mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. It glided without making a sound, and for a moment, Jess felt it reach for her. "No!" she screamed, pressing harder on the gas, her heart pounding in frantic rhythm. The world dissolved into shadows and fear. Then she saw it, a faint light ahead, salvation perhaps. But the light flickered dangerously, too unreal. In that instant the fog shifted, revealing something that stole the breath from her lungs. A roadside sign, "Welcome to Haven Creek." But the town was nothing but a graveyard. The gathering mists writhed like serpents, and terror crashed over her like a tidal wave. And in the center of the sign, in dark, dripping letters, read one last warning: "Turn back, or forever remain." Jess slammed the brakes, tires screeching, heart racing. She was trapped now, caught between the past and the mysteries of this cursed night. What would she do? As she stared into the light with growing desperation, a thought burrowed into her mind. What had she awakened? Was it too late to escape, or worse, to confront what lurked in the depths? The darkness answered her question with a thunderous silence, pregnant with the weight of fear. The stillness around Jess was broken only by the heavy breathing that filled the car, her own lungs betraying her with every desperate gasp. The faint light flickered menacingly, teasing her like a mirage that promised salvation while hiding doom. What was she doing? She couldn't stay here. Not with the baker's corpse less than 10 feet from her car. Panic jolted through her as she gripped the steering wheel tighter. A glimmer of hope flashed. She could just drive away, tear off into the night, ignore everything behind her. But she couldn't shake the sound of his voice. "Help us." It echoed in her mind, weaving through her thoughts like the ghosts that now surrounded her. They begged her, taunted her, and she could almost feel their icy fingers grazing her skin. She was being dragged deeper into this town's secrets. She was a coward. Pushing the fear down, she turned the key again, praying the engine would roar to life. The car trembled but sputtered into silence. The lights flickered off, casting her world into a deeper darkness. The calm might well have been a death knell. "Please start," she begged, panic swelling in her throat. Her hands shook. A low moan slipped from her lips, the sound swallowed by the fog. Glancing to the rear view, she saw a figure moving. It was hard to make out. The light had vanished, and shadows writhed like a living nightmare. "Jess," a voice whispered right beside her window. It was a soft, familiar tone that turned her blood cold. "Lily?" she breathed, turning sharply to her right. But instead of her little sister, all she saw was the oppressive fog pressing against the glass. Was the universe mocking her now? The desperate scream of grief clawed at her throat, trapped like a wild animal. "Help us," the voice returned, this time insistent, urgent. She squinted, straining to see through the fog. Was there someone out there? The breath on her skin, the sound in the dark? Hadn't she driven too far? With trembling hands, she rolled down the window slightly. The damp air wrapped around her, thick with a heavy sweetness that smelled of decay. The figure was there, just beyond the murk. Female, small, familiar. "Lily? Is that you?" Jess gasped, her heart erupting. "Help us, you can't leave, you must help." The pleading was upward spiraling, an ultimatum filled with desperation. Jess's heart cracked open. The horror of the moment crystallized into clarity. She either had to support the drain of spirits clawing from the abyss, or face the reality of her fears. Sweat dripped down her forehead, clouding her vision. "What do you mean? I can't let you go. What do I do?" "Find us!" The voice came through, a shriek of unfathomable despair chilling her veins. Something on the outskirts of her vision flickered, and Jess's breath caught. Another shape, grotesque and elongated, rippled against the mist, drawing closer to the car. A shadow that nearly pulsated with malice. "No!" Jess slammed the window up. The figure screamed, an awful sound that pierced her chest. She slammed her foot again on the gas, but the tires spun uselessly in place, momentum lost in the fog-drenched hell. "Oh God," she whimpered, searching for any shred of light, any path to freedom. The baker appeared through the fog once more, arms outstretched, eyes wide and hollow. Behind him, shadows shifted, forming a wailing mass, thrumming with unchecked rage. "Turn back, or forever remain." In that moment, Jess realized the truth. It wasn't just her driving that awakened the horror. It was her fear, her choices that brought forth the darkness. She had to escape. She had to fight. With adrenaline surging, she reached for the gear shift, heart pounding. The ghostly figures swirled around her, howling and clutching at the air, but she didn't have time to succumb to fear. The fog began to thicken around her, a living, breathing entity, but she chose to push through. "I will face this," she screamed into the void, slamming the gear into drive. Then she launched forward, the car screeching as it propelled into the clenching mist. But as she drove deeper, the world around her warped, twisting and melding into something altogether unrecognizable. And in her heart, she knew the real nightmare was just beginning. What awaited her beyond the spectral fog? Would she uncover the town's secret, or become just another echo in the night? The fog enveloped her like an old tattered shroud. Each breath felt heavier than the last. The car lurched at the sudden velocity, the engine's growl competing with the distant wails of the unreal shapes swirling through the mist. Jess gripped the wheel tighter, her knuckles stark white against the shadows. A loud thump rattled the car, breaking through the illusion of solitude. A dark silhouette slammed against the driver's side window, leaving a splattering trace of something wet. Heart racing, she turned her head towards it, only to find a twisted face distorting into a scream. The features of the baker twisted with an unnatural glee, an even deeper terror following him as he stretched his arms toward her. "No!" she shouted, slamming her foot down on the gas. The tires screamed against the gravel road, echoing the agony that swelled inside her. The car surged forward, but the shadows chased, relentless, gnashing their teeth as their forms pulled closer. "Help us," they cried, their voices merging into a cacophony that burrowed into her mind. Had she truly driven far enough? What were the spirits craving? The more she tried to drown out their howls, the louder they became. Suddenly a flash of light pierced through the fog. It flickered once, then disappeared as quickly as it came. Relief spread through Jess, only to be crushed by the crushing realization that it was her hope fading, like the last candle shared in a dark room. After another moment of frantic driving, the road opened out into a barren field, moonlight spilling over the crests of tall grass. The fog began to thin, but she knew it was merely a trick. Behind her, the insistent moaning of the ghostly figures intensified, building to a crescendo that vibrated in her bones. Then she saw it. Ahead on the road lay a figure, a small child standing motionless, bathed in ethereal light. Jess's heart dropped as she recognized the familiar shape. "Lily!" she screamed, her voice laced with desperation. The apparition turned slowly, her face obscured by tangled hair. "Help us." The words were soft but carried a weight Jess couldn't shake. What lay behind her sister's gaze? Was it terror, or simply an echo of the dark? In an instant, Jess felt the pull of those shadows, a clawing urge to return. The drive toward her sister made sense, but knowing she had barely escaped, would facing the darkness be worth the cost? Please. Jess pressed against the window, the air growing thick with sorrow. I'm here, I'll help you, what do you need? The child's lips parted, but no sound came out. Instead, tendrils of darkness began extending from behind Lily, curling toward Jess's car like serpents. They slithered through the air, the shapes pulsating with energy, almost alive. Each encroaching shadow whispered tales of regret and anguish. The air grew colder, her breath visible, a stark reminder of the pressing danger. The ground beneath felt ominous, and the car began to shudder as if it could sense the changing tide. No, she gasped, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so tight it was painful. This isn't how it ends, you're not taking me. With the ferocity of a cornered animal, she slammed the car into reverse, praying the motion could somehow break the hold of the shadows. Pumpkin orange light flickered in the distance, the scattered remnants of what once was. She felt the steering wheel strain as it swerved to the right, her heart racing with the rhythm of the chaos around her. A surge of adrenaline drove her to press the gas, but the looming shadows persisted, undeterred, dragging her back toward the fog. Jess tightened her grip on reality. I have to face it. But then, just as darkness threatened to consume her, that familiar voice rang once more, clearer this time. Help us. And something shifted in the air. The figures surrounding her, were they meant to trap her or guide her? The car jolted forward again, engine roaring defiantly. But Jess knew one thing for sure. She was inching closer to the truth. She could feel it in her bones like an itch that demanded relief. What would she find at the end of this ghostly chase? Would she embrace the darkness or become its newest prisoner? The shadows clawed at Jess as the car lurched and roared forward. Her heart hammered relentlessly, each beat a reminder that time was slipping. She looked in the rearview mirror, desperate to catch a glimpse of what pursued her. The fog was thick, but within it, she could see boiling shapes twisting and writhing, their mournful echoes reverberating in her mind. Help us, they whimpered, their voices merging into one haunting chorus. It stuck to her soul, pulling threads of memory she wished to forget. Jess swiped her sweaty palms on her jeans. This wasn't the first time she had felt trapped by her past. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. Outside the windows, the shapes began to take form, the spectral faces of those she had wronged. A sudden jolt rocked the vehicle, as if the shadows had taken hold of the frame. The steering wheel felt foreign in her trembling hands, and the engine sputtered like it might give up. No, 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 she muttered, willing it to keep moving. But the road ahead seemed alive, twisting beneath the weight of her fears. Lily, Jess screamed again, torn between her sister's dreamlike visage and the hell that had come crawling from the depths. I'll save you. But the shadows seemed to laugh, their laughter an echo of despair as they billowed closer. Just ahead, she spotted lights glimmering faintly, a ghost of a chance gleaming through the fog. Hope flared as she pressed the accelerator, her foot steadying with determination. But the lights danced further away as she drove, teasing her, a mirage in the dark. Don't you dare leave me, she cried as panic set in. The figures behind her howling with agitation, their spectral forms closing in. She dared to glance once more at her sister, whose eyes bore into her, a pit of grief that swallowed Jess whole. What do you want from me? The ground shuddered, and the fog curled around the tires like chains, constricting her escape. Jess swerved wildly, and the headlights flickered ominously, barely illuminating the swirling void. A chilling realization struck her. She had become part of their story, trapped in their cycle of torment. The lights ahead matured into shapes, tall, rotting trees lining the path. Each trunk seemed to pulse with a life of its own, mouths gaping wide in silent cries. They formed a ghastly corridor into the unknown. This can't be happening, Jess gasped. Then the voice pierced through the rumble of dread, soothing and sharp, as if it bore the weight of all their regrets. Help us. It filled the cabin like a summer breeze, creeping under her skin. Gritting her teeth, Jess turned off the road and plunged down a trail racked with debris. The crunch of gravel gave way to mud, sucking at her tires, slowing her down. Please, let there be a way out. She pounded the steering wheel, desperation gnawing at her sanity. A shudder coursed through the car, and she felt the shadows surrounding her pull tighter. The child's face, the sorrow, the plea, haunted Jess, and then the darkness reacted, lunging at the car with unexpected speed. Her hands tightened on the wheel as the headlights flickered, casting erratic shadows over the tall grass. Just like that, they roared to life, and the car jolted forward as if rebelling against her trembling will. Jess closed her eyes against the rush of terror. What if this was all a trick? Suddenly a glow emerged through the branches ahead, a warmth she hadn't felt in so long. It was alive, alive enough to chase back the shadows that writhed hungrily behind. With newfound courage, she pressed the gas further down, feeling an otherworldly force drawing her in. But just as hope surged anew, headlight beams spun wildly, revealing an abandoned house just off the path. The moment of recognition kicked in as despair wormed its way back. It was a place from her nightmares, a home of memories laced with sorrow. Jess's breath caught as she realized. This was where it all began. Would she dare confront the truth within those decaying walls? The car spluttered one last time before shifting into a reluctant halt, its engine dying against the silence. "Help us," echoed once more from within, a persistent whisper that ignited both fear and resolve. Steeling herself, Jess opened the door, the chill of the night wrapping around her like an unwanted embrace. What awaited her within those haunted walls? Was it sanctuary or doom? Jess stepped out into the stillness, the air thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. The house loomed before her, decrepit and weary, its windows like hollow eyes watching her with disdain. A shiver traced her spine. This place had swallowed hope before, and she could feel its pull already. Inside, darkness festooned the corners like cobwebs, damp and murky. Jess took a cautious step forward, sorrowful echoes dancing just beyond her grasp. "Help us," echoed in her ears, a spine-chilling reminder of the forgotten lives trapped within. A flicker of movement caught her eye, shadows that moved against her will. She jerked around, feeling the icy grip of dread tighten her throat. The floor creaked beneath her weight, each sound a shout in the oppressive silence. "I have to know," she whispered to herself, each word a promise, each heartbeat a reminder of her sister. Jess moved deeper into the heart of the house, barely illuminating the path with her phone, the screen casting an eerie glow on the peeling wallpaper. Images of happier times flashed like ghosts before her eyes. Lily's laughter as they played in the garden, their mother's voice singing a lullaby. But those memories twisted like thorns in her chest, replaced by the specters that now lingered. "You can't escape," they murmured, a crowd of mournful souls clawing at the edges of her mind. A door at the end of the hallway beckoned with a certainty she couldn't explain. Hesitantly, Jess reached for the handle, her breath hitching in her throat. The hinges screamed as she pushed the door open, revealing a musty room lined with old photographs, stale, yellowed memories of her childhood, warped by time and neglect. But one image captured her attention. It was a picture of her sister, smiling bright, arms wrapped around a stranger's waist, his face scratched out, an unforgiving reminder of buried secrets. Jess's heart raced. Who was he? Why had someone tried to erase him from her life? It felt like a betrayal. "Why didn't I know?" she whispered, nearly drowning in the depths of regret. And yet, the shadows rustled again, hushed whispers swirling around her like a storm, disoriented cries merging with the sound of her heartbeat. "Let me help you," the voice called, more urgent now as if time was running out. Despair ignited in Jess, filling her every pore with dread. If she tried to save them, what would she have to confront? Suddenly a loud crash shattered the stillness, making Jess jump back. The door swung wide, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. Heart thundering, she squinted into the murky depths, but nothing emerged, just a chill that crept along her skin. Get out! The voice echoed again, more fervent this time. We're trapped! Help us! Panic swift as a dagger, Jess turned to flee, but the ground felt alive beneath her. The whispers grew louder, clawing at her sanity. You belong here! You can't leave us! Fighting against the thickening shadows that wrapped around her limbs, she lunged for the door, an animal response to the threat that closed in. The figures materialized in flashes now, grotesque faces suffused with longing and pain, their eyes wide with need, mouths opening in silent screams. Jess burst outside, gasping for air. But the night pressed in, the darkness a living entity seething with rage. The shadows scattered and reformed, their demands crashing against her. She staggered away from the house, the fog swirling around her like angry serpents. Then a sickening crunch sounded beneath her foot, a cold hand brushing against her ankle. She looked down to find something glimmering in the grass. A key, rusted and old. Return what was taken, or face the darkness where hope cannot tread. The wind hissed through the trees. What was she willing to sacrifice to mend the broken past? In that moment, Jess felt the shift, a dawning realization of what lay ahead. Clutching the key tightly, she turned back toward the house, heart racing with both dread and determination. What truth would she unearth next, and at what cost? The wind howled as Jess clutched the key, feeling its cold metal bite into her palm. Her pulse raced, a frantic rhythm urging her back toward the house. She hesitated at the threshold, her heart pounding against her ribs like a warning bell. The whispers seemed to pulse around her like the suffocating fog, wrapping her in their sinister embrace. Return what was taken. The voice echoed in her mind, a mantra filled with desperation. She turned the key in her thoughts, considering the possibilities. What had been taken? Her sister, their childhood. Each stolen moment twisted her resolve stronger. With a shaky breath, Jess stepped inside again, the darkness swallowing her whole. The air felt heavier this time, dense with secrets waiting to be uncovered. The oppressive silence bore down, but now, among the faded photographs and peeling wallpaper, she was no longer just a visitor. She was something more, a seeker of truth. Confronting the room where she had seen the photograph, Jess eyed the ghastly faces looming from the shadows, their eyes relentless in their despair. "Why didn't you tell me?" she urged, desperation spilling from her lips. But the figures merely shifted, wild whispers entwining around her words before retreating into the dark. She scanned the room until her gaze fell on an old trunk, its edges rusted, the lock as forbidding as the figures in the room. It looked somehow familiar, like a piece of her history yearning to be opened. The key in her hand seemed to warm as she approached, as if it too was aware of their shared fate. "Please," she whispered, her fingers trembling as she inserted the key into the lock. It clicked, an ominous sound that reverberated through her bones. Taking a deep breath, she lifted the lid. A cloud of dust billowed out, swirling in the feeble light. It attacked her nose, making her cough as a chill crept down her spine. Inside lay letters and trinkets, pieces of a life half remembered. Her eyes landed on a letter, yellowed and fragile. She unfolded it, heart racing as she decoded the familiar script. It was her mother's handwriting. "Forgive me," the letter began. "The darkness must be contained. I had to make a choice." Each word sent shockwaves through Jess. "What choice?" she gasped, her voice barely rising above a whisper. The shadows thickened, swirling with anger. The air turned electric around her and the walls began to breathe as if the house were alive, responding to her intrusion. Images flashed in her mind, her sister playing, laughing in the garden, then fading into screams and shadows. No one had warned them. No one dared to speak of the cost of staying away from the house. It wasn't just a home. It was a graveyard of secrets, a prison of souls longing for release. "Help us!" The voices arose once more, and she could feel the tension rising, her heart racing with both terror and a strange anger directed at the shadows that craved her attention. "You're one of us now." They beckoned, clawing at her sanity, their need almost palpable. Suddenly, an unearthly wind blew through the room, sending the papers flying into a storm of chaos. Jess staggered back, fear deepening in her gut. The shadows weren't just seeking help. They were hungry, desperate to pull her into their dark fold. With each frantic glance, she spotted the faces once more, twisted with agony, as if they were trying to warn her of an approaching darkness. "Jess!" A familiar voice rang, breaking through the cacophony. It was a whisper, but so achingly recognizable. Her sister's voice. "Lily!" Jess screamed, desperate to hear her sister's laughter again, to see her face among the shadows. But the room only echoed back her torment. The shadows advanced, swirling closer, demanding, "You must make a choice." Her pulse quickened. The photo, the letter, the key. All remnants of a life that was slipping through her fingers like sand. She had to decide. Protect herself, or face the darkness for Lily. As the shadows closed in, Jess felt the weight of the key in her palm, the choice looming over her like a specter. What if this was just the beginning? What if the unraveling of secrets was more terrifying than she could imagine? The darkness rumbled in agreement, hungry and waiting for her next move. Could Jess confront the darkness without losing herself? What else lay hidden in the folds of the past? A sudden chill swept through the room, wrapping around Jess like a cold, damp blanket. The air prickled with electricity as shadows pulsed closer, their whispers entwined with her heartbeat. "You're one of us now." They cooed, an echoing chorus that flooded her mind, drowning out all reason. The words slid into her thoughts, embedding themselves, clawing for her surrender. A flicker of doubt pierced through her terror. Could Lily still be alive somewhere in this chaos? She needed to find her. But what price would she have to pay? The shadows quivered, hungry for her decision, swirling hungrily at the edges of her reality. "Choice is an illusion," they hissed, their breath like ice. "You belong to us." "No!" Jess yelled, a sudden spark of defiance igniting within her. The key felt heavier as she clutched it, both a burden and a weapon. She willed the darkness to back away, and the shadows hissed in response, hissing through invisible teeth. "Return what was taken," they pressed, voices steeped in anguish. The fact that there was something, or someone, to return echoed painfully in Jess's mind. "Mom," she whispered, but the shadows merely laughed, twisting her mother's memories into grotesque figures. "What about my sister?" The plea came out choked with fear. The shadows hesitated, momentarily stunned by her bravery, but only for an instant. They surged forward, darkness clawing at Jess's feet, trying to swallow her whole. With desperation fueling her, Jess dashed toward the room's far wall where a flickering glimmer of light pulsed in the partial darkness, revealing a mirror. Tarnished, cracked, yet beckoning. If she could just reach it, maybe it could reflect the truth of what was happening, show her the fate of her sister. "Stop her!" The shadows shrieked, their cries twisting into cacophony. They lunged as one, furious and wild, desperation clawing at the air like a living thing. As Jess sprinted toward the mirror, a sense of urgency washed over her. Each step felt like a charge through molasses, the shadows dragging at her heels, grasping at her legs. They threatened to pull her back into the morass, back to the secrets and the pain. In one fluid motion, Jess reached the mirror and pressed her trembling fingers against the cool surface. It rippled like water, a portal to something beyond. Faced with her reflection, she gasped as the image morphed, revealing a scene she'd never seen. Her sister Lily trapped in a darkened room, her cries muffled as if the shadows were suffocating her voice. "Help me, Jess!" Lily's figure cried, a primal fear etched across her face. The sight ripped through Jess as if it were the literal weight of despair. "I'll find you," she screamed, her voice intertwining with the chorus of shadows. "I swear it." But as she turned to push through the depths of the mirror, the shadows circled around her, clawing and shrieking louder than ever. "You can't escape us!" they howled, their fingers pricking like needles against her skin. A sense of dread curled in her stomach, twisting her thoughts. What if they were right? What if all her efforts only led to deeper darkness? As she pushed against the mirror's surface, it slowly began to yield, but the shadows clamped down, their whispers rising into an overwhelming roar. Desperation clawed at her, the urge to break free, battling the chains of despair that threatened to pull her back. "Make your choice." The shadows crooned, their voices sultry yet sinister. Jess's heart raced, cold sweat pouring down her back. What lay on the other side? Would it be salvation or doom? The truth behind the shadows or the allure of the darkness? In that moment of uncertainty, the mirror trembled violently, cracking further, about to shatter apart. Jess clung to her last thread of hope, teetering on the edge of the abyss. Would she plunge headfirst into the unknown for Lily? With a final surge of willpower, she pressed forward, desperate to uncover the truth about her sister and the dark secrets that enslaved their past. Would the choice she faced grant her what she sought? Or would it bury her in a fate worse than her darkest fears? The mirror shattered in a brilliant explosion of glass, light bursting forth like a supernova. Jess felt the raw energy rush over her, a tide breaking through the despair. She stumbled forward, propelled into the void beyond. Time seemed to stand still. The air crackled, vibrating with an otherworldly force, and Jess squeezed her eyes shut, praying she wouldn't be lost forever. With a sharp gasp she landed, knees hitting the ground hard. Opening her eyes cautiously, she found herself in a dim, alternate version of the room from before. It was eerily familiar, but where echoes of sorrow usually lingered, this space pulsed with vibrant energy, thrillingly warm against her skin. Then she spotted her. Lily stood across the room, trapped inside yet another mirror, her reflection distorted and trembling. "Jess!" Lily cried, desperation filling her young voice. Hope surged in Jess's chest. "Hold on!" Jess rushed toward the mirror, pounding her fists against the glass. "I'll get you out!" The image inside twisted and warped, Lily's face blurring as the shadows from earlier threatened to seep into this version of reality as well. "Tell me what to do." "Find the key," Lily exclaimed, her words echoing softly like a song of a long-lost lullaby. "It's hidden in the past. You have to face it." Jess hesitated, a lump tightening in her throat. The truth was woven into the very fabric of her memories, the truth she had buried deep. The shadows began to shift, coiling around her like smoke, trying to turn her from the path she had to take. With determination firming her resolve, Jess turned her back to the mirror. "I'm not afraid of you," she shouted, defiance igniting her spirit as she faced the encroaching darkness. "I know what you are. You are the weight of my past, and I will no longer let you control me." The shadowy figures rippled, unsettled by her boldness. They shrieked, a cacophony of anguished howls. But Jess stood her ground. "Help us," they wailed, clinging to her for the promise that light could exist even in their despair. "No," Jess demanded. "I will not be part of your suffering. You don't own me, and you don't own Lily." The atmosphere shifted. In the midst of her defiance, Jess felt as though she were breaking the chains that bound not just her, but the spirits intertwined with her past. The shadows hesitated, then began to retreat, whispers of anguish fading into chilling echoes. "I need to face what happened. I need the key," she asserted, trying to harness the courage spiraling through her chest. Suddenly, the trunk from before appeared in front of her, pulsing with an inviting glow. Its lock was cold and still, but Jess had the knowledge now, the strength to confront her fears. With the key clutched tightly in her hand, she approached, heart racing. "Let me in," she commanded, inserting the key, the metal fitting perfectly as it clicked open. The lid sprang ajar, and inside vivid snapshots of her childhood, memories long hidden, flashed before her eyes. Birthday parties, laughter, family gatherings filled with joy. But darkness seeped through like oil into water, the face of that man, the stranger, looming ominously. As she pulled out the letters, the one from her mother shone brightly. "Forgive me." It beckoned with urgency. With steadfast resolve, Jess read the rest, realization washing over her like a tidal wave. Mom made sacrifices, ones that cost her dearly. The secrets unraveling made sense now. The baker, the whispers, the shadows were those lost to the choices made by fear and ignorance. "I'm here for you," Jess shouted, heart pulsing with purpose. She took a deep breath, feeling strength swell within her, cocooned in the memories of love and loss. "I'll help you find peace." Fire ignited in her chest. "I am not afraid," she cried, holding her voice aloft, burning away the last remnants of despair that clung to her. "I will carry the light for us all." The specters flickered, eyes shifting from hollowness to flickering hope. "Return what was taken," they pleaded, softer now. In that moment, Jess reached deep into herself, summoning every ounce of love, the memories shared with her sister, the weight of her mother's joys and sorrows, and offered them freely into the swirling mist. "I'm here. I'm ready to forgive." The chant built from the depths, carrying every ounce of remorse, every moment lost. As she spoke, Lily's reflection began to solidify in a radiant light. Her laughter rang out pure and joyful, as tendrils of brightness chased away the shadows, illuminating everything in radiant clarity. Then, in an explosion of released weight, the room erupted in a burst of light. Jess felt a rush of warmth envelop her, a sense of belonging washing over her as the shadows disintegrated into shimmering dust, dissolving into nothing but memory scattered across the whispers of the wind. Lily appeared, materializing in front of Jess, eyes glistening with joy. "You found the key." "Together," Jess breathed, tears of relief pooling in her eyes. "We're free." As they embraced, the fog that had suffocated the night faded, revealing the starlit sky above, twinkling softly as dawn approached. The whispering shadows had vanished, transformed into flickers of light surrounding them, echoing the love that would always weave through their existence. Together they walked forward into the new day, leaving the darkness of the past behind them, embracing the future with open hearts. It was time to live. And now, everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section below with your reactions and theories about the ending. And most importantly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now.